This is Channel 4's News Watch, the Bay Area's most complete, up-to-the-minute presentation of local, national, and worldwide events.
Good evening, I'm George Reddick.
And I'm Fred LaCoste.
A handful of supervisors, some say 9, some say as many as 11. They're manning 2 engines tonight. That's about all there is to the Berkeley Fire Department at this hour. And so far, the city and striking firemen haven't even agreed to go back to the bargaining table. The firemen walked off their jobs this morning after overnight talks failed to produce any last-minute settlement. The pickets appeared at all firehouses, City Hall, and even the fire chief's office. And they were joined by firemen from neighboring cities, San Francisco firemen promising to send pickets as well. The firemen are asking for a 16% raise. The city says it can only afford 9% this year and another 6% next year. In the meantime, Berkeley Mayor Warren Widener has declared a state of emergency. Tonight, we asked the mayor and the head of the Firemen's Union really just how safe a night it will be for the people of Berkeley, all 120,000 of them.
We have 2 rigs that are being manned by supervisory personnel right now that will respond to a fire. In addition, there are 2 rigs on the University of California campus. These 2 rigs are being manned by firefighters from Davis and Santa Cruz with some backup from Livermore. I mean, after a certain number of hours, they'll go off duty and be backed up. But those are 2 rigs that are being manned by firefighters who are used to fighting fires in buildings, chemical fires, and that sort of thing, the kind of fires that occur on campuses.
We've removed our services from the city. The mayor and the city manager have told the citizens of this city that they're safe, that they have a tremendous mutual aid pact, and the forestry is coming in here to protect them. I guess we have to believe them too. We know different. The forestry is not in here. They're having trouble with their mutual aid pact because it's designed for large fires. The fact that the surrounding firefighters are all union men. They don't want to be known as strike breakers, and I'm just hopeful right now that those 8 guys that they have uptown don't get anything that will extend them past those 8 guys.
So you're saying that there would be no aid?
We're on strike.
Prospects of a settlement in that strike tonight are not good at all. The city council adjourned until tomorrow night, and Mayor Widener says no negotiations are even scheduled.
And that strike is causing some real headaches for the University of California officials. The Berkeley campus does have fire protection tonight, but the firemen are keeping a very low profile, not wanting to get involved in that strike controversy. Now, traditionally, the UC Berkeley is under the protection of Berkeley City firemen, and campus officials don't want to take sides during the strike. But when the question of safeguarding the taxpayers' investment came up, state and university officials decided that firemen and equipment must be brought in. The firemen are regularly employed firefighters at the Davis, Livermore, and Santa Cruz campuses, and they're in a tough situation because, after all, they're union members themselves. And the equipment that they'll be using has been provided by the State Office of Emergency Planning. It's a little out of their line, since it's usually taking action only in the case of natural disasters.
A lot of firefighters are busy tonight, very busy tonight, nearly 800 of them battling a 1,300-acre brush fire in Southern California. That fire is centered in the Los Padres National Forest in Ventura County. It started late Sunday in an abandoned hunter shack near Lake Piru. It burned within a half a mile of a campground and forced the evacuation of 100 people. Fortunately, no one has been seriously injured. 10 aerial tankers and 4 helicopters spent much of the day dropping chemicals on that blaze, hoping to check it. But hot weather and winds hampered the efforts. Containment, as of this hour, is not yet even in sight. A San Francisco man is in satisfactory condition tonight with burns over most of his body after an explosion and fire in his garage. Firemen say a house at 1982 10th Avenue in the Sunset District of the city was fully engulfed when they arrived about 4:30 this afternoon. According to witnesses, 66-year-old Clyde Robinson was working on the gas tank of his car when the explosion occurred. Authorities think fumes from the tank were touched off by the flame of a hot water heater nearby. Robinson is now in the burn unit of San Francisco's General Hospital. His wife was upstairs at the time. Fortunately, she was not hurt.
Well, one outgrowth of the police and firemen strike is a call for the changing of hours that a fireman should work. And Supervisor Dianne Feinstein has led the way, calling for a change away from the 24-hour shifts now in effect. Today, Kevin McCullough went to some stations to check on the subject.
Like all regular firemen in San Francisco, these men at Fire Station Number 1 came on duty at 8 a.m. They'll stay on duty for 24 hours, straight through until 8 a.m. the next day. Then they're off for 2 days. Every third time, they're off for 3 days between shifts, and once a month for 4 days. In all, they work 9 days out of a month's time. It allows many of them to hold down second jobs, to moonlight, and it's angered many people who put in a 5-day, 40-hour week. But the firemen argue that their shift is like 3 regular shifts back to back. By that logic, they work 27 shifts a month, more than most office workers. They get no holidays off their regular schedule and no premium for working nights. Though instituted at the request of the men, the 24-hour shift is defended by department brass.
When you take into consideration that the national statistics peg the fire department as the most hazardous profession, even more hazardous than a miner's job, why, and these statistics are all based on the number of injuries that men sustain in the line of duty, why, it's no easy job.
What about changing things around to 5-day, 40-hour week? Work 3 shifts.
Well, if that were to happen, it would take about 1/3 more of the forces than we have today, almost 1/3.
The firemen here tell me they feel like pawns in a political battle now. They say the city hasn't been generous with them. They pay for their own upkeep in the firehouses, for their food, and for their television. As for night times, they say every time a fire alarm is sent to any company, the bells ring in all the firehouses in the city, and the lights in the dormitory go on. They say it's tough to get any sleep. Kevin McCullough, Channel 4 News.
And firemen's hours will be one of the topics up for discussion at the supervisors' meeting on Thursday. And some bitter feelings over the San Francisco police strike still in the air tonight. Dianne Feinstein again, speaking as a candidate this time for mayor, as well as a supervisor, called for a new police chief today.
Obviously, there's been a tremendous leadership vacuum exposed in the San Francisco Police Department. And I would certainly call for a new chief of police and call for a new police commission, with a view that that chief and that commission carry out its charter-mandated responsibilities, which are to administer the San Francisco Police Department, and at a time of crisis, to take a position and stand tall.
I intend to finish out the year, and of course I intend to leave the department when Mayor Aliotta leaves the department. Or leaves the city.
She also said that you lack the courage to control your own men.
Well, that's something I really don't appreciate that, and I don't want to get any controversies with any of the supervisors, but I certainly resent that.
But Mayor Aliotta came to Chief Scott's defense this afternoon. He called Feinstein's statement a low political blow, and he said that Scott is a policeman's policeman. And for policemen, all leaders of last week's San Francisco police strike are now heading for court September 2nd. The charge, contempt, because they ignored a judge's order to go back to work. Among them, Jerry Crowley. He's president of the Police Officers Association. He, along with 3 picket captains. They could be fined as much as $500 or sentenced to 5 days in jail.
There is a hepatitis scare tonight in Portland, Oregon, and it could affect people in the Bay Area. Public health officials up there in Portland saying now that there are 32 cases of hepatitis reported there, and they're worried about an epidemic possibility. They've tracked the source of the virus to 2 restaurants in Portland, and anyone who may have eaten at either Oliver's Pub or the Hungry Horse since August the 10th should contact a doctor or the Portland health officials. Good news from the Middle East tonight. We'll have the full details in just a moment. The Sinai settlement is close at hand tonight. Secretary of State Henry Kissinger delivering a draft of that accord to Egyptian President Anwar Sadat today after earlier meeting with Israeli officials.
This morning, Kissinger resumed his talks with Israeli leaders, focusing on the precise language to be used in the agreement. Israeli sources said the settlement calls for a total of 4 early warning stations to be set up in the Sinai, 1 to be manned by Israelis and Americans, 1 by Egyptians and Americans, and the other 2 exclusively by Americans. The Israelis regard the American presence in the Sinai as a vital element in the new agreement. They see it as a significant political symbol, as well as a stabilizing factor which is not dependent on the United Nations. Kissinger has made it clear to both sides that American personnel will not be stationed at the monitoring posts without formal and binding congressional approval. But it's his view that the U.S. Congress will approve. Following today's meeting, Kissinger was highly optimistic.
We are making remarkable progress towards an agreement and a nervous breakdown, and it's going to be a race which will be achieved first. We are no longer working on either an Israeli or an Egyptian draft agreement. We are working on a text which is partially agreed and partially disagreed, and when it is finally finished, it will be the common consensus of both sides.
Kissinger then flew back to Alexandria to discuss drafting problems with the Egyptians. He's hopeful that drafting can be completed by the weekend, and his last shuttle flight of this mission will be to get a document initialed by both sides. Kissinger's return to Alexandria looked and sounded like his two previous visits here. The arrival by helicopter at the presidential villa on the sea, the long walk across the lawn, the traditional embrace with President Sadat, followed by a picture session and an open-air news conference during which the two men cheerfully succeeded at being as non-specific as possible. The American and Egyptian teams then began reviewing a draft text of a new Sinai agreement. For the first time, both Egypt and Israel are working from the same basic document. But even so, American officials warn that a lot of technical work remains to be done before a settlement can be wrapped up.
Nonetheless, a treaty may well be signed and initialed this week and formally, officially signed next month. George Meany, President Ford, met for 90 minutes today at the White House. Both men are at odds over the shipping of U.S. grain to the Soviet Union. Tonight, they still are. Meany's men, the AFL-CIO dock workers, are still refusing to load that grain, and the only thing that came out of today's White House powwow was that there would be even more White House meetings. Meantime, Earl Butz, Ford's agriculture secretary, was telling reporters in Hollywood that Meany simply wants a bigger share of the export-import business for his men, and that his interest in the boycott simply stems from a mistrust of the Russians.
And the United States doing a lot of business overseas these days, so much so that America's balance of payment surplus, $977 million for the month of July, and that was the 6th month in a row that the nation sold more than it bought in foreign countries. But the news was not all good. Crude oil imports up 20%. Energy getting scarcer and more expensive, and there's one woman in Arizona who knows just how serious the situation is. In fact, she's giving up her home simply because it's getting too expensive to run.
This tiny two-bedroom home is owned by a divorced Phoenix woman, but because of the skyrocketing cost of electricity, she's not sure how long she and her son will be able to hold on to it. The home is a cracker box, 2 small bedrooms, a kitchen, bath, and living room dining area. Major appliances include a refrigerator, a stove, and a dishwasher. No washing machine, no dryer. She's afraid of the energy cost. Last July, under a typical scorching Arizona sun, the air conditioner was set under 80 degrees. Her electricity bill was $45. This July, under similar heat, the thermostat was set at 80 or above, but the bill was $65. Nearly a 40% jump, even with energy conservation. The fact is, a lot of Arizonans are paying almost as much for energy during the summertime on a home like this as they do for the mortgage payment. If it continues, a lot of people are going to be forced out of the single-family home and back into apartments. Owning a home has long been called the American dream, but now the cost of electricity is changing that dream into a nightmare. This is Ron Talley reporting from Phoenix, Arizona.
A clean bill of health today for Deke Slayton, the astronaut. A 2.5-hour operation today, a tumor removed from his left lung, benign. Doctors say no reason he can't travel in space again.
Santa Clara County deputies are still trying to locate a missing Mountain View woman tonight. 44-year-old Estelle Bonstead disappeared last Thursday night at a search party. Went through some rough terrain today near the end of Stevens Canyon Road looking for clues. Mrs. Bonstead's car was found on this road last week, abandoned, but with her purse, wallet, and money still inside. She's been known to take walks in these hills before, but never staying overnight. Relatives say Mrs. Bonstead had been depressed lately. Officials aren't certain if they should suspect foul play at this time. If you're a woman, single, live in California, and have had trouble getting credit because of that, you're about to get the law on your side. Governor Brown has signed a bill which, with the new year, bars such discrimination. Says its author, Assemblyman Berman of Beverly Hills, it will prohibit discrimination which is currently based solely upon capricious distinctions and not upon the real credit risk of the applicant. Well, they're all broken up over the Roselle rule. And Barry will be back. Those stories and more with Joe Angel and all the sports in just a minute.
In Chicago tonight, negotiations have broken off between the NFL owners and the Players Association. I'll give you one guess as to what the problem might be. Take a second or so. You got it, the Roselle rule, among other things. That was 1 second, right? Among other things, according to a federal mediator in charge, the two sides simply cannot get together on some sort of a compromise. In fact, they're not even talking at this moment. And the result could be another pro football strike. I certainly hope not. It wouldn't do anybody any good, especially the game of football or the players. And I think you'll agree that after seeing your police department and your fire department go on strike, a football strike won't seem quite as important, right? And about the Roselle rule, well, the courts seem to be taking care of that pretty well, so the players don't really have to worry about it as much as in the past. Certainly is nice of Rick Barry to come back and try for 2 in a row. The Warrior captain saying today he'll play for 3 more years, or as long as he can maintain a high level of performance. Everyone knows that Rick was hoping for a full-time job as a sportscaster, and had he gotten that job with the CBS network, Rick says he would have been forced to retire. Barry, number 24, coming off the best season of his career, 31 points a game, the MVP in the championship series against the Bullets. He should, of course, have been the MVP in the league as well. I never could understand why Rick was entertaining thoughts of retirement when it's obvious he has plenty of good basketball left in his body. As it turns out, he will continue playing and still work in television during the off-season as he is doing right now. Rick Barry, he will be back as the Warriors try to prove their greatness once again by the way they defend their title in 1975-76. Well, if the A's had to make a living off Catfish Hunter right now, they'd be on welfare. The Cat did it again tonight, a 7-1 victory at Shea Stadium in New York over his former teammates, his 4th over the A's, and his 18th win of the season. Roy White and Thurman Munson each had 4 hits in that ball game tonight. The Giants got another great pitching performance out of Candlestick tonight. Rookie Pete the Maltese Falcone going all the way in a 4-3 win over the Montreal Expos. Falcone struck out 12. His previous high had been 9, and it's certainly good to see Falcone go all the way for only the 3rd time so far this year. Gary Thomason won that game with a home run in the 8th inning after striking out the previous 3 times at bat. Cincinnati's magic number is now 16 after a win over Chicago tonight. The Mets stay within striking distance in that Eastern Division with a victory over San Diego. The Pirates took the Braves, the Phillies were beaten by the Dodgers, and St. Louis took a couple from Houston, so Pittsburgh now leads St. Louis by 3 and the Phillies by 4. The Cards moving up a notch tonight. In the American League, Baltimore-Kansas City split. The Royals now 7 games in back of Oakland. The Angels over the Red Sox, and the Twins by 1 over Milwaukee. For the 2nd straight year, Bjorn Borg is the U.S. professional singles tennis champion. Borg, the teenager from Sweden, taking care of his good old buddy Guillermo Villas in straight sets. It might have been a more interesting match had Villas been able to get his serve in. 6 double faults for Guillermo Villas in the opening set, and it wasn't much better after that. Tomorrow, the opening round of the U.S. Open at Forest Hills. Jimmy Connors seeded number 1, Villas is number 2, and Bjorn Borg, the winner tonight, is seeded number 5 in that tournament, which will be very interesting, Fred, and you too.
Hey, good of Rick Barry to come back to the Warriors.
I think so.
Did I detect a little sardonic bite in that?
There's plenty of time for him to become a broadcaster. Why not?
You don't want him to take your job, that's
No, not at all. What you have to really take into consideration here is the fact that CBS has a contract with the NBA to televise the game of the week, and it wouldn't make too much sense for CBS to pluck one of its superstars right off the court, especially when you take into consideration the fact that the Warriors are on national TV 6 times this coming season.
Why would they even talk to him?
That's right. And it also wouldn't...
but they did talk to him.
That's right. Oh, yes, they talk. He's doing part-time. They got plenty of time. Plus, business relations wouldn't be that well between CBS and the NBA in the future. So you've got to take that into consideration.
So we go from unpredictable Rick Barry to the unpredictable weather. Huh? That's the way it's been, actually, lately around the Bay Area here, as you've probably noticed. As far as tomorrow's concerned, well, let's go to the expert, okay? Here's Terry Lowry.
A dreary, rather overcast day in the San Francisco Bay Area with temperatures ranging from 62 in downtown San Francisco to 78 degrees in Fremont. And tomorrow, there's a slight chance of rain. But before we get on to that, let's take a look at the national situation for tomorrow. There are going to be showers scattered south and east of this weather front right here, all the way through Texas, the Gulf Coast, the southeastern portion of the country, up into the Ohio Valley and portions of the eastern seaboard. It'll continue very warm in the middle eastern seaboard from Washington to Georgia Georgia. 86 degrees is the forecast for New York City. Now, as we move westward, 90 degrees for Denver tomorrow, 105 degrees for Phoenix. Palm Springs will get up to 110. The Los Angeles area will just have some low clouds and fog in the morning, clear skies in the afternoon with a high of 80. 64 for Monterey, 79 in Sacramento, 69 degrees for the Tahoe Valley, and 60 degrees for Eureka, Arcata. Now, right here you see a cold front. If we take a look at the western satellite photo, you can see where it was this afternoon, or rather this morning. It's stretching across Washington up in the Pacific Northwest. It brought some showers to that section of the country today, and it should bring some showers as far south as the Oregon border by tonight, and as far south as the Monterey-Stockton line by tomorrow afternoon and evening. That includes us. But tonight, temperatures will be in the 50s, 55 for Pittsburgh, 54 for Santa Fe, 53 for downtown San Francisco. Tomorrow's high in the city will be about 61, 62 degrees. Now, the forecast for the San Francisco Bay Area is for generally fair weather tonight, except for the fog and low cloudiness along the coast, extending inland nights and mornings with local drizzle. But tomorrow, by tomorrow afternoon, clouds will increase. There is a 40% chance of showers for tomorrow night and rain for tomorrow night, and then chance of showers for Thursday. Winds will be out of the west 15 to 30 miles per hour for portions of the Bay Area, otherwise west-southwest 15 to 20 miles per hour. And that's the weather. I'll be back with the news at noon tomorrow, and Fred and George will be back with more news in just a moment.
Edwin Zeeberg, an assemblyman who made a career out of environmental protection, is dead. He was only 49, the victim of an apparent heart attack, and his sudden death leaves the Assembly with 54 Democrats. That's the bare two-thirds majority needed to approve tax legislation or override vetoes. Time now for Jeff Simon's Ford Country Report, and this time it features a couple of commuters out of the car in a canoe.
There are all kinds of ways to commute across the Golden Gate, by car, by bus, by ferry boat, some people even bicycle or walk. And then there's Andy Elbert and Joe Ambrose, partners in a San Francisco printing firm, who several times a week make the Marin County commute by canoe. It's not unusual to find the two former Olympic paddlers putting their canoe into the icy waters of San Francisco Bay around the same time most Marin commuters are starting up their cars or stepping on a bus.
If you don't believe that this is fun, you're intelligent.
The homeward journey usually takes about 45 minutes, but when the wind and waves come up, the commute can turn into a marathon.
Whatever gave you the idea to do this? There's not too many people have done it before, and it's very challenging.
Have you ever capsized?
No, and I don't intend to do it tonight either. Pull wide a little bit.
What do people say to you when you tell them you do this?
They think we are a little bit suicidal, but I don't think this is that dangerous at all.
Have a good trip. Bon voyage.
Thank you. Same to you. Don't capsize now.
Andy and Joe say that their canoe commute is not only a lot of fun and exercise, but with the rising bridge tolls, it's also a lot cheaper. I'm Jeff Simon in Fore Country.
Bon voyage. And they don't have to worry about traffic jams.
No bridge tolls?
Sure.
No pennies in the meter? No parking
Pennies?
garages when you get here?
Well, it's not a meter with pennies.
Not lately.
They're quarters these days. Right. That's Newswatch for this Tuesday night.
And don't forget to join Newswatch tomorrow at noon. Also, George and I will be back at 5:30 tomorrow night at 11 tomorrow. See you then. Good night.
Good night, Joe.
Good night.
This has been Newswatch 4, the most comprehensive and up-to-the-minute news available in the Bay Area, gathered by San Francisco's most professional broadcast journalists. Next Newswatch at noon tomorrow.